Many thanks to Miles and Glenn, and apologies, Glenn. We will work for a new scripture the next time you are worship leader. On January 25th, 1987, at the end of Super Bowl 21, New York Giants quarterback, and this is the only time you'll ever hear me give a football story in a sermon. It's not my genre. New York Giants quarterback Phil Simms starred in a Disney commercial where he was asked, "You've just won the Super Bowl. Where are you going to next?" And he responded, "I'm going to Disney World." He was paid $75,000 for that spot, as was John Elway, quarterback for the Denver Broncos, just in case they won the Super Bowl. The ad, which aired multiple times over many years to follow, with various winners of various sporting events, has planted in our cultural minds this question and answer about celebrating by going to Disney World. And so it came to pass that in late December 2012, the Greenbring family went to Disney World to celebrate the new year there when the clock struck midnight to usher in 2013. We went as part of a group trip organized by the dance studio that Hannah was attending at the time. There would be an opportunity for her to perform, and it offered some group rates for families to join and stay for a few days. So the six of us, all much younger at the time, and my parents, packed up on December 29th, yes, I have this still on a calendar, and flew to Orlando to join what seemed like billions of our new closest friends to celebrate the new year at Disney World. It was festive. It was colorful. It was holiday spirit, and I would never do it again. It was so incredibly crowded. At times, bodies were packed in so tightly that you could barely move. To attempt to make our group more compact and efficient, my memory is that Mark carried at least one child at a time on his shoulders, and we used our smaller umbrella stroller to wheel around 3-year-old Mariah. But we quickly discovered that the stroller and the child in it were invisible to the throngs of crowds pressing in on all sides. It would probably have been best if Mark could have carried all of us stacked on his shoulders like a drawing in a Dr. Seuss book, and then maybe we would have been able to move a bit more efficiently. By the evening of December 31st, it was clear that the younger two and I believe my mother, were going to need to just head on back to the hotel. We were tired and overwhelmed and getting a little cranky. We followed a long, long line of park visitors out some kind of side exit that I don't think is normally used except in these cases of extreme crowding so that the park could let more families in the front gates. We boarded the shuttle bus to ride back to the hotel, and within a couple of minutes, as little heads were nodding and eyes were becoming heavy with sleepiness, a stomach became unsettled due to unusual food, crazy sleeping schedule, the rocking movement of the bus, and Mariah told me I could say that it was her, got sick all over the bus seat, all over the festive princess costume dress, all over our celebratory spirits. When I was finally able to rest back at the hotel, younger kids comfortably asleep, Mark and the older kids still out enjoying the park, I could hear the fireworks exploding over the Disney castle in the distance, and I thought, Happy New Year. Sometimes celebration does not look like we expect. But as humans, we like to celebrate. We often celebrate things that have happened, that have concluded, that have been achieved. We celebrate birthdays at the end of the year when the new age reveals the number of years that have been completed. We often celebrate a marriage at the reception after the ceremony. We celebrate a life after it has been lived. We celebrate graduation when the last exam has been completed and the last class attended. We celebrate our gratitude for the things that we already have. But what would it look like if we celebrate what is to come? The very first verses of this section, which Glenn is very familiar with in Deuteronomy 26, suggest a future orientation. In the CEB version that we heard, it starts, once you have entered the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, or in the NRSV, when you have come into the land. It hasn't happened yet. It's setting the stage for the fulfillment of what has been promised to the Israelites. Most of this entire book of Deuteronomy is written as the voice of Moses speaking, relaying again the commandments that Moses heard from God to the people who Moses has been leading through the wilderness for decades, out of Egypt and towards the land promised to Israel by God. This is written and interpreted as part of a lengthy speech by Moses. And in chapter 26, at least, it isn't an instruction to the people about what they are to do right now, but it is an instruction with the confidence in the promise that there will be land for them. Things will change from their current situation. All will be well. And when it is, Moses says, this is how it will be recognized. This is how it will be celebrated. This is how it will be marked in time. Moses is talking about planning now for celebrating later. Things aren't quite settled yet. Are they ever for the Israelites or us, I wonder? But Moses is giving instructions for how they are to recognize the occasion of settling in their new land and their gratitude for all that they have been given. We could and should ask important questions about what has happened to folks who may have already been settled in this land before the Israelites will get there. Also, how do we wrestle with the reality in Deuteronomy and other First Testament books that describe God as credited with violently taking these lands and attacking other people groups? I hope that we can hold those kinds of important questions about the ancient authors and their written witness to their understanding of God's work in their midst, while also noticing what is helpful for us to consider today in our time, in our world, in our lives. And so I wondered if it might be interesting to think about how we celebrate now something that has not yet happened, or something that is still unfolding. What if we celebrate a life, even if it's not a birthday or a funeral? What if we celebrate the love in a relationship, even while it's still growing and not yet perfect? What if we celebrate a meal together or a gathered group, even if it's not quite going exactly the way everyone hopes and dreams? Might we celebrate the work of this congregation, even while there is work to be done and there are opportunities on the horizon? These verses in Deuteronomy also flow back and forth between singular and plural pronouns, I and we, you and us. There is an important role for both the individual and the community in the gratitude and celebration that is described. In addition to celebrating the sacred gifts we have individually received, how might we also celebrate God's presence and movement and attentiveness to the communities of which we are a part, our larger families, friend groups, intergenerational circles, this church? These spaces also have special and unique ways of nurturing us as people, encouraging our growth, caring with and for us, and that is worth celebrating. This congregation is a place worth celebrating. I often hear two things in particular to note as we celebrate. Number one, in the larger world of faith-based organizations, many churches are struggling with low attendance, diminishing finances, buildings that are crumbling, welcoming young families who don't seem to be at the door, keeping programs running, and taking action on important issues of justice and peace. And while we also wrestle with some portions of those questions, we can be thankful that we have so many who join us each Sunday morning in person and online, the number of children that gathered up here just a few minutes ago. We have folks who are willing to do the hard work of maintaining an aging building. We have people of all ages who want to be together and want to learn and grow. We have leaders who are excited about dreams for the future of this congregation. And number two, we have something unique and special to offer here, and we aren't shy about sharing it. Through our Anabaptist and radical pietist theological roots, we try to exemplify a lived faith based in obedience to Jesus' commandments and an active sharing of God's love. We do our very, very best to actually practice what we preach and teach: openness to all people, attentiveness to the needs of the vulnerable people and communities in our midst, immigrants, the LGBTQ+ community, persons from a variety of ethnic and social backgrounds, folks of all ages. Do we always get it right? No. But I think we can celebrate our heart. We can do our very best to be authentic and loving, modeling, as best we understand it, the authenticity and love of Jesus Christ. And in doing this, like yesterday's holiday celebration, like our support of CWS, like our hosting of the Elizabethtown Child Care Center and the Elizabethtown Community Nursery School and other things, in doing these things, we are attempting to share our first fruits, the early produce from the land we have been given. Not only our financial and physical resources, but the first fruits of love and faith and hope that we experience as gifts from God, sharing the sacred light that we have ourselves used to find our way in the dark. And that in sharing these gifts, we might both be celebrating God and celebrating with God. We celebrate what is, and we celebrate what is to come. We celebrate that for which we hope, and we celebrate that which we know, resting not necessarily on an understanding of a God who has already laid out all of the details of our lives to unfold outside of our control, our involvement, but a God who deeply desires good for and with each of us individually and as a people, and provides multiple paths and opportunities for us to explore how we fit into that plan for good, how we can work where God is already working for good, for ourselves and for others. I was introduced to the idea of celebration as a spiritual practice in seminary, as one of my classes worked through Adele Calhoun's Spiritual Disciplines Handbook, which I would highly recommend. And that source also cites Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline, with which some of you may be familiar, particularly chapter 13, which looks at the spiritual practice of celebration. For both of those authors, celebration is clearly described as a corporate practice, a worship practice, a community practice, and yet there's an important individual element as well. These times in which we live are tough. There are things going on in this world that are confusing, angering, frustrating. The headlines of the day may evoke feelings from sadness to shame to rage. On a more private level, relationships and families experience brokenness and disconnection. People feel lonely and turn to any number of unhealthy sources to attempt to find comfort or distraction or numbing. None of this is new, but it all seems like a lot right now. It may be difficult to find our way to celebration on our own. And yet, before we come together corporately to celebrate and to worship, we have individual work to be done, other spiritual practices in which to engage. I think we see some of these practices that can help lead to celebration spelled out in this Deuteronomy text. Listening, attentiveness to God's call, the nudges of the sacred, the pushes to continue on the long path ahead. Faithfulness, obedience to follow the path of the Spirit, to do the things we individually and as a community are called to do, even when we aren't quite sure how it will work out. Using symbols and rituals, practices laden with meaning to further our understanding and feeling of connectedness to each other and to the divine presence. Trust in something other than ourselves. And maintaining an awareness of the things in our lives that are good, that bring sustenance and satisfaction, and be willing to give some of that, the best of that, which we have received, back to God. And if you continue reading in this chapter in Deuteronomy, to also then give to those on the margins who are vulnerable, who need what we can make available. I invite you to think about a place where you most readily connect with God. You might find it helpful to close your eyes, but you don't have to. Where do you sense the movement of the Spirit? Is it in nature? In music? In poetry or prose? In walking or meditation? In your mind, go to that place. Put yourself in the presence of God in a place where you find joy, where you celebrate life. Notice the presence of the Spirit around you, around us. In words or in images or in feelings, what do you have to share with God about the joy that you receive in that place? Think about the bounty that you have been given in this life, gifted from the Sacred One. It may be something produced from actual land, a place for a home, a space where you live, possessions, wealth. It may be less tangible than that. Friendships, family, relationships for which you are grateful. Places and spaces where you know you belong and feel at home. Passions that you enjoy, skills or gifts or talents that you have to share, something that makes your soul sing and your heart hum. Notice within yourself a feeling of gratitude for these good things. Pay attention to the feelings that rise within you as you think about this gratitude. Do you feel joy? Maybe relief? Do you feel humble or empowered? Do you feel free, content, hopeful, thankful? As you entered the sanctuary this morning, hopefully you received a small piece of paper that says "Celebrate" in a color I like to call acorn squash. On it, at some point between now and the offering, I invite you to do as we read in Deuteronomy 26, verse 2. Take some of the early produce of the fertile ground that you have harvested from the land the Lord your God is giving you, and put it in a basket. We each have something to give as an offering, the early produce or the first fruits of your hope, your celebration, your praise, your love, your awareness of the sacredness of life, the spark of Christ in your soul. You might note something for which you are particularly grateful, something you are celebrating today, something out of your abundance that you are aware you have to offer to God and to others. Please do not include your name, but I invite you to write something on the note. And during our offering time, place your offerings of both your financial resources as well as these written offerings of gratitude and celebration that you have to share in the baskets that are passed. Sometimes celebration does not look like we would expect. There may not be balloons and decorations, and the fireworks may only be heard from a distance. And sometimes giving a portion of the best that we have makes us feel a little queasy. But New Year's Day, even though we're not there yet, does offer a unique opportunity both to look back, but primarily to look ahead with intention at the new year that is coming, full of possibility and opportunity and surprises waiting to unfold. Perhaps when we take intentional time in gratitude and celebration for all of the good gifts we have received, we also can see possibility and opportunity and surprises waiting to unfold. Happy Thanksgiving and Happy New Year. May it be so.